Assalamu alaikum. My name is Fadwa Wazwaz, and I wanted to discuss with you today um, a new presentation. It's going to be on the verse. I just been slowly kind of sharing it with some posts on my Instagram profile. I like to just walk you to the verse and look at them, and then go to the post in my on my profile. So this is chapter 4 of the Holy Quran, verse 75. How is it that you do not fight in the way of Allah and in support of helpless? Another maybe translation could be unprotected, oppressed, men, women, and children. Notice here, God doesn't put an X on men and just focus on help women and children. This is very important to know because a lot of time oppressors, persecutors, evil people, wrongdoers, they justify killing these by claiming this person was with these. So I'm not really targeting women and children. I'm really targeting men. And the men happen to be with the women and children. And so therefore, I have no choice but to kill the women and children and the men. So it kind of works. This is kind of the deranged mindset of evil people. And another thing that this verse also points out, because it's the framing, it's very, very important that we use the correct language and the correct framing. Again, first talks about oppressed, not subhuman. You're not supposed to feel subhuman when you're oppressed. You feel oppressed. Somebody has their foot on your neck. You're feeling oppressed. You're feeling persecuted. And so they pray, our Lord, bring us out of this land whose people are oppressors. So I feel people persecuting me are oppressors, evildoers, wrongdoers, persecutors. But you should never feel subhuman. Your humanity should never be in question to you. And so we need to make sure we help people who are oppressed and let them know you are persecuted, oppressed, helpless, unprotected. These are oppressors, persecutors, evildoers, wrongdoers. Those are the words and the terminology you need to reflect on. So never say, am I human? Say, aren't these oppressors that they are engaged in such actions? Don't question your humanity because your humanity is not in question. God says, why do you not fight? Why? Because your humanity here is not in question. Their humanity here is in question. They need to be fought because they're transgressing the bounds of right, of law, of faith. They have even transgressed the bound of what it means to be human. They've turned themselves into oppressors. No one told them to be oppressors. They've turned themselves into monsters, a killing machine. So when God is saying fight, he's not saying to fight you because you're subhuman. No, fight them. They're the ones who turned themselves into a killing machine. And appoint for us from yourself a protector, and appoint for us from yourself a helper. Some scholarly commentary on this verse. This refers to those wronged. Again, not subhuman, people who were wronged, oppressed, persecuted, and it includes men, women, and children of Mecca. It wasn't always like Zionists that were persecuting people. Again, humans do genocide. You receive a call, you try to kill others. Some respond to that call and they join ranks and ranks and ranks. And they form against those who are helpless and unprotected. And they persecute them. So the time when this first came, it was in Mecca. Tribes in Arabia, some had embraced Islam and some did not. But those who embraced Islam did not have the means to immigrate, means to leave, or to protect themselves from the wrongs to which they were nonstop being subjected to. They were helpless people who suffered many forms of persecution, and they prayed for deliverance from the oppression. The people doing the oppression at the time were Arabs against other Arabs in Mecca. Just because they were Arabs, that doesn't mean we say, oh, I have to love you because then I am anti-Arab and, you have to be given, hugs and I have to walk on eggshells around your feelings. No, we got to be very forceful. We got to be very forceful. You are an oppressor. You've turned yourself with choice into a killing machine, into a persecutor, into a wrongdoer. You need to be fought. Who's being fought? Arabs fighting other Arabs who embraced Islam, persecuting them, pressing them. God says, fight them. Someone makes a decision to turn themselves into a killing machine. I shouldn't be worried about their feelings. And I shouldn't have to make a case to fight for my survival. If my very existence is under threat. It's not a theory. It's reality. So this is a verse from the Quran. Now it's applicable because genocides happen and happen and happen and happen again. There is no such reality of never again. The Quran says, no, it will keep happening. After one genocide, another genocide, because this is what humans do. That's why this verse is for all time until all human beings eventually will be exterminated, believe it or not. They will continue to be doing genocide throughout history. Even after we've gone, 100 years later, there'll be more genocides. And regardless how much we learn and how much we understand and how much we came up with museums and we build another museum, there'll be genocides again and again. Because building a museum doesn't mean that you're going to stop doing genocide. Not an indicator like you just, or if you had people who in the past, they persecuted you, it doesn't mean that you will not be the persecutor in the future. So the Quran is very clear. If you are facing persecution, it's clear as day. It doesn't tell you how go chant some slogan, never, never again. It says you have a responsibility to push these persecutors, wrongdoers, those who made a choice to be a killing machine, and help those who are men, women, and children, because they need to be supported. It tells us how to deal with genocide when it is brewing, about to happen, and when it's happening, how to push it and how to stop it. So the next genocide comes, if we see all the players, then we have to come to help the men, women, and children, protect them, and then how to make sure that we push the evildoers to face justice. It's like you can't stop, any crime in the community. There has to be laws of how you respond to crime. Why they do the crime, we don't go around and say why not. There's plenty of centers right now for healing. Why do we always talk about after the fact? Well, I did this crime because I was dealing with this issue. Well, if you were dealing with this issue, you could go and seek help before you commit a crime. So I want to put that out there because I want to take you, again, this is the verse 475. This is a chapter. You can look at more than one translation. I use this time Asad. Ahmed Asad is actually used to be, I believe he used to be of the Jewish religion, and then he converted to Islam. And so he also, one of his works was a translation of the Quran. So you could look at that. You could also look at others. So now we're going into these posts that I wrote. People hate people who do genocide. It has nothing to do with you being Jewish. You're Arab, you persecuted people. I gave you an example from the Quran. People hate people who do genocide. Now, if you love the Nazis who genocided Jews, that's for you. You may have like a special feelings that we don't, but normally, naturally, people hate people who do genocide. People hate murderers. They hate people who kill them, persecute their children, persecute their mothers, their fathers. So you may translate it or interpret it or try to weave it into that they hate you because you're Jewish. But as I said here, people hate people who are their oppressors. So if your oppressors are Arabs from Mecca, they hate you. And if your oppressors are Jews in Israel, they hate you. So stop asking people to like you when you are persecuting them. Rather, focus on what needs to be focused on, which is stop genociding people. Not why don't they like me and they need to like me and they need to love me and they need to, stop genociding people. Palestinian men are not targets. Being a Palestinian man is not a crime. Again, as the verse states here, why won't you fight in the way of Allah in support of the helpless? Again, another translation, oppressed, unprotected. Who? And it begins again, men, women, and children. Why are we only focused on women and children? The mere fact that you're a man, because I'm seeing a lot of men being targeted and killed. Defense, their civil defense, they're targeted, killed. Journalists, targeted, killed. Doctors, targeted, killed. Nurses, targeted, killed. Professors, targeted, killed. Why are they being targeted and killed? Palestinian men are not a target. He was targeted and killed. With many of his family members. He's an academic. Yesterday was the 1 year that we were remembering when he called for protection, openly called for protection from persecution, from the oppressors. He had no way, he was not persecuting. He had no way to for help, no way for protection. Yesterday, we were reviewing his life story. He was targeted and killed. Resisting persecution is a right and a responsibility, not an act of terrorism. It needs to be said over and over again. People are facing occupation, colonization, genocide. Our faith teaches us as clear as day, you have a right and a responsibility, it's a duty that you have to. So if you're facing an existential threat, you have a right to fight back, and you have a right to push the oppressors and persecutors in their boundaries. Resistance to oppression and persecution is a right and a responsibility. Resistance to oppression and persecution is a right and a responsibility. And then, as Hanan Ashrawi said, and others, like, we're the only people being asked to worry about the security of our oppressors or occupiers. On top of the fact that we're being persecuted and we can't protect ourselves and we're not even feeling secure, we're asked to be, instead of worrying about our own security, which is where we're facing existential threat, we're asked to instead, don't worry about your security. Worry about the security of your oppressor. Like, how crazy is that? We're being targeted. We're being oppressed. We're being persecuted, and we're asked, don't worry about that. Worry about the security of those who are persecuting you. They need to feel secure. Like, how crazy is that? How mentally insane is that? God did not ask us to worry about their security. If you want to worry about the security of Nazis, be my guest. If you want to worry about the security of those who harm America, be my guest. If you want to worry about the security of rapists and criminals, be my guest. But we can't follow your way of reasoning. God says to worry about our security. Our security is at stake. We are to worry about our security. Appoint for us from yourself a protector. Appoint for us from yourself a helper. We're supposed to be worrying about our security that is under threat. We are feeling helpless. We are feeling oppressed. We are feeling persecuted, not subhuman. Use the words oppressed, persecuted, helpless, unprotected, not subhuman. And they are oppressors, killing machine, persecutors, abusers, oppressors, tyrants. Those are the correct terminology. But the security God is asking us to worry about is our security. We're the one persecuted. We're the ones tyrannized. That's what God is asking us to worry. We have a right to feel secure. That security is being violated. Our sense of safety is being violated. We need to worry about our security, not the security of those who are killing us and oppressing us and persecuting us and exterminating us from our homeland. I put this here because we go into all the negotiation, blah, 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 that the Palestinians have made concessions. They do not want to make any more concessions to please their persecutors. It is a genocide. Too many independent experts, organizations, whether it's human rights, doctors, and other UN, for example, investigations that went and said, look, it is a genocide. There is a genocide taking place. We have a responsibility to act. And this action means that we have to be, they're asking for, I remember him asking for protection. We have a responsibility to act, to become protectors and end the genocide, and helpers to help them to heal from the genocide they've experienced. Use the correct terminology. Resistance to oppression and persecution is a right and a duty. It is not terrorism. Enough nonsense. Men are not targets. Because when we say that men are targets, and we allow ourselves to accept this logic, then they create AI, which says, where is daddy? And the man goes to the women and children. And then they say, okay, bomb. Say, well, we're only, this Hamas, this Hamas, this Hamas, this Hamas, this Hamas. Suddenly every Palestinian man becomes Hamas. Even though in Israel, they're all required, men and women, to join the military. Yet if we use their logic, remember, they set the rules. If you play by their rules and say, okay, well, I bombed here. And they're like, well, those are civilians. Yeah, but they're all in the military. They don't accept that. The rules that they write with their own hands, they don't buy into those rules. Men are not targets. We don't owe our oppressors and persecutors security. We have a responsibility to push them within their boundaries. If they feel insecure while we're pushing them in their boundaries, that's okay. That is acceptable for them to feel insecure. If they feel unloved while they're persecuting, that's okay. We need to tell ourselves and tell them, it's okay if you feel unloved while you're persecuting, because people hate those who do genocide. I hope that we can bring ourselves to stop playing foolish games. And we can accept the responsibility that we have to end this genocide and protect people who are crying and calling out for help. And like I said, he wasn't the only one, but I remember putting a post about him while he was asking for protection. I believe it was this one. Yep, it was this one. He was killed in an Israeli airstrike on his sister's home on December 7th. It was revealed that he received many threats for his freedom of speech, calling out Zionist propaganda. And below are some of the information that I had gotten from here. And these were his words at the time that kind of caught my eye. We are helpless. We have nothing to lose. He was calling for protection.
We know that it's very bleak. It's very dark. There's no way out.
I posted this at the time.
If there's no water, there is no way out of Gaza. What should we do? Like drown? Like commit mass suicide? Is this what Israel wants? And we're not going to do that. And I was telling some friend the other day that I am an academic. Probably the toughest thing I have at home is an expo marker. But if the Israelis invade, if they charge at us, open door to door to massacre us, I'm going to use that marker, throw it at the Israeli soldiers, even if that is the last thing that I would be able to do. And this is the feeling of everybody. We are helpless. We have nothing to lose. We know that it's very bleak. It's very dark. There's no way out. If there's no water, there is no way out of Gaza.
What this was,
like drown?
This was again a year ago. Today is December 7th. 1 year ago, when this academic was targeted and killed. Palestinian men are not targets. And he was killed along with family members, sister and children and other family members. And as you could see, his cry was very similar to what is said here in this verse. How is it that you do not fight in the way of Allah and in support of helpless? As you can see how helpless he was. Men, women, and children who pray, our Lord, bring us out of this land whose people are oppressors, and appoint for us from yourself a protector, and appoint for us from yourself a helper. He suffered many forms of persecution and prayed for deliverance from oppression. We heard him very clear. They targeted him and killed him. This is just a case example. The verse right after this one, those who've attained faith fight in the cause of God, whereas those who are bent on denying the truth, and experts after experts after experts after experts, field research, process, verify, confirm, genocide is taking place. But there are always people who will be bent on denying the truth. They fight in the cause of evil. So we have to use the right terminology. They're fighting in the cause of wrongdoing, a killing machine. Never question your humanity. It is their humanity that is in question, not ours. We're not denying the truth, and we're not turning ourselves into killing machines of people on earth. They are. Their humanity is in question. Fight then against those friends of Satan. Remember I said your ego is Satan's BFF. They follow their ego, and the ego follows Satan. They're the friends of Satan. Verily, Satan's guile, or his call, is weak indeed. Where is Daddy? And then they go bomb the entire. Is that a reasonable argument? Oh, there's Hamas there, Hamas here, Hamas there, Hamas, 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 Hamas. That's their argument. Is that an argument? There's no process. There's no due process whatsoever. No verification. Just everybody Hamas and then bomb. Again, Satan's argument is weak indeed. All just, permutations of logical fallacies. So I had hoped to do this video today, because again, today is December 7th. Passed away a year ago. And it was used that whenever you just targeted a man, all the children, women that were killed when you're targeting that one man is acceptable and rational. And our response, just to conclude this presentation, people hate people who do genocide. I really don't care what ethnicity you are, what religion you are. People hate people who do genocide. If you feel unloved while you're genociding, that's not our problem. Palestinian men are not targets. So where is Daddy? Whoever designed it and whoever used it needs to be brought before the Hague for justice. Palestinian men are not targets. If you believe someone committed a crime, just like Palestinians went through a process of the ICJ and the ICC, and they wanted warrants for arrests for all of those involved in the genocide, then you do the same. You go to the ICC and you present your case and your findings and you follow a process. You don't create an AI machine and just say, where is Daddy? And say, Hamas, 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 Hamas. That's Satan. That's you being subhuman. Resisting persecution is a right and a responsibility, not an act of terrorism. Calling it terrorism doesn't make it terrorism. Saying, I'll give you hell doesn't make it terrorism. I got nuclear bombs. Yeah, you got nuclear bombs, but that doesn't make it terrorism. Resisting persecution is a right and a responsibility, not an act of terrorism. We're the superpower on the block. You got superpowers, but that doesn't make it terrorism. Resisting persecution is a responsibility and a right. It's not an act of terrorism. Oppressors do not have a right to security or affection. If you are in any way, shape, or form defending the genocide taking place in Gaza, your security and your feelings of love, being loved or unloved, is not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to protect the men, women, and children who are praying for an end to the oppression and asking God for someone to protect them and someone to help them in the face of genocide that they are facing. That is our responsibility. So I hope this was beneficial. And I hope that we can reason well, because there are consequences to our actions and our behavior. Just because someone doesn't have a superpower, it doesn't mean that people ever escape justice. Justice delayed is not justice denied. at an appointed time, despite all the machinations, they are doomed to fail. We saw the Pharaoh failed. We saw not too far, 100 years ago, Hitler failed. All oppressors, persecutors failed. We don't need to build a museum for them. God saved their body as a sign. And some of the places of the lands where they were, he left it as a sign, because we build museums for wrongdoers. We don't build museums for those who are oppressed. Those who are oppressed, we build trees, we build things that give life, universities, things that nurture life, because we see they're martyrs, and a martyr is someone who's ever living. They don't die. But it's oppressors that are supposed to be put in museums to send a message to us that regardless how much machinations they engaged in, regardless how much they listened to Satan and they came up with all these permutations of machinations to kill and persecute, they are doomed to fail. So God left Pharaoh as a sign for us. He left his body. We will save your body this day. The other bodies, we don't have them saved, but we have saved Pharaoh. To send a message to those who are like, we've got nuclear bombs, we got this, well, this is through history, people made that argument. Is what we're trying to tell you. They huffed and puffed just like you, and they persecuted and turned themselves into killing machines just like you. And they failed. Just like you will fail if you continue down that road. This is the end of this presentation. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.